Nothing to hear, nothing to see. All is well with democracy, and the good guys are in charge. Our lead story of the evening involves an incident in South Boston, where...
Not attempt to adjust your equipment. We are in control. This is Sinister Mysteries. Tonight, we bring you another disturbing case from our files.
Enjoy the rest of the broadcast.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Here we are, 5-5.
So do we tell them now, or do we see the tease to the end of the show, so that way it's even a greater hook?
Yes. Yeah. Do that. Do that.
Right.
Tell them at the
Stay
end.
to the end of the show so you can find out what the big announcement is.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, there. Now our lighting is similar.
Right.
So it's episode 55, and it's also the 5-year anniversary of my podcast experiment.
Congratulations.
So yeah, pretty wild. And we will be, Craig, believe it or not, I checked the date, July 22nd. So I think we do a show on July 24th. That'll be 3 years for Sinister Mysteries.
Yes, that's pretty crazy. Has it really been 3, or has it only been 2?
I had to look at it twice. No, we debuted in 2022.
No way.
July of 2022. So, we've done 50 of the, we've done 54.
Yeah.
We only do them every other week or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's amazing, the stuff. I mean, when you think back, I mean, it's just like, you look back on the stuff and just everything is just, it comes at you so fast. You're just like, before long, you're like, wait a minute, when did that happen? That was a long time ago. Wait a minute. Oh, that was last year. Holy crap. Man,
yeah, I have 340 something videos on my channel. I don't know. It's pretty nuts. Hi, Tanya. Tanya wasn't supposed to be home for like another half an hour. That's pretty cool.
Welcome.
Welcome. So we have decided, or I postulated or put forth, and Craig agreed. What we're going to do is, if there's something really, really big in the news, we will preempt and push subject matter, and we will report on it. Otherwise, we're going to save current events until the end. We only have a couple that we want to talk about this week. We're staying away from things that are uber political, Craig, which has always been
our thing. We're kind of, how many times have we got to tell everybody we are not jersey wearing for either side. I mean, it's like, it's all about truth. Where does the truth lie? And then we just go from there.
I like your t-shirt.
Yeah, I thought because of them, I'll put it down a little bit so people could see. Yeah, nope. I figured since we're talking, Colts, I go, hey, why not? Especially since the first one we're going to be starting with is the same genre.
Oh yeah, man. There is a thread, and of course, folks, as you know, we did Sinister Ministries 1. We covered a bunch of Heaven's Gate and different ones. We did a special standalone episode, which was also kind of a Sinister Ministries, Nexium and the family. There's so many families. So we have another in March. We have another family for you, a U.S. family. We have a very, very this is icky. The Australian family. We're saving it for last, I believe, right?
Yeah, that one is like Opus Dei is the one. If we save this one for the last, everybody's going to be bored. Everybody's going to be like,
Yeah, they get increasingly, but there is this thread of the abuse of religion, the abuse of spirituality. There's a lot of overlaps with what we've done previously.
This one the first one we're talking about is an adherence to Christ and the things you have to go to serve the Lord. To, you know, then we really start going down the crazy train where, you know, Shinchionji, I think is how you say it. You know, I'm if I got that. That's the shorter. Joey had a really nice. There it is. It's scrolling right now. That is the name of the whole thing.
Shincheonji, Church of Jesus, the Temple of the Tabernacle of the
Tabernacle of the
Testimony.
Testimony. Yeah,
I can't believe I got that out. That was pretty good. Let's all say that together really fast.
Yeah, that's that one. That's then we start really getting to the where I am the reincarnation of Jesus, and this is what, you know, to where we get to the family. And yeah, it's like last I checked, Jesus wasn't into the abuse of the children.
No, when he said, "Bring unto me the little ones," it wasn't so I could dose them with LSD. Whoop, a little tease there. So Opus Dei, I think probably most people know Opus Dei because of Dan Brown's the Da Vinci Code, and Paul Bettany does a very disturbing like albino monk that, you know, whips himself and wears this what's it called, the Silis or Silis.
Yeah, it's kind of looks kind of like a cat of nine tails type thing, you know.
Yeah, no,
there's one thing
you wear around your
for anybody that hasn't read the book, you have to read the book.
Oh yeah,
because the movie Ron Howard, he really you know softened a lot of the stuff that was neat, you know, changed thing. But he did a really good job. But it was, when you read the story, I mean, he was all out. I mean, it was the self-inflicted, you know, pain and stuff like that too. You know, it's just, and that's one of the things with Opus Dei. There's some people that really adhere to this.
Yeah, it's called a Cilice, I think, Cilice, and it's a spiked chain that you wear around your thigh. I mean, that's nasty. I highly recommend. I love the Dan Brown books, Origins and Solomon Key, I think was the final name of it. I'm trying to look over here on my bookshelf. That was the one that was delayed, and it was giving away too much information. But then finally it came out. They're all really, really good. But anyway, so Opus Dei was founded in 1928 by Saint Jose Maria Escrive in Spain, and he's a saint. He became a saint. And their emphasis, it starts very mundane. These things always do. There's an emphasis on finding holiness in everyday life. We all need to do that in one way or another. And in our professions, in our work, make our work holy, make it gratifying. That's nothing wrong so far. But Opus Dei quickly began to seek a broader influence in shaping conservative political and cultural discourse. Now, of course, we all know, and I don't want to go into specifics tonight, we'll probably use some code because of algorithms and otherwise, but conservative causes are against certain things. We're seeing a lot today. That's to be expected. That's the church. That's their beliefs. Doesn't mean they're right. Even the Catholic Church is moving on some of these things, but they wanted to have a heavy presence in these things. They were early on linked to Francesco Franco's fascist regime, but that's okay because we know the Catholics, they get in bed with the Nazis, the fascists all the time. There's a huge history of that, Craig. I'm not saying anything new there.
Nope.
Then it gets very, very into the heavy, like who are the dudes that were involved with these guys, and it gets dark really fast. So do you have anything else setup-wise?
I finally figured out the term. Corporal mortification is the term. Is what they it's where you
mortification of the body. Yeah.
So that way you can practice. That's what they call it. It's corporal mortification. That's
and you can whip yourself. So people have seen that, right? Mea culpa,
basically
mea culpa, mea maxima culpa.
Yeah, it's putting yourself into the pain and suffering that Christ endured while on the, carrying the cross and stuff. So,
though, it's not in my notes, but I've read psychological studies, and interesting things happens when you activate that much pain receptor while also starving yourself or fasting. You begin to hallucinate. So it's a way to get close to God, experience divine things, because
Yep.
that spike of all those chemicals due to the pain, plus the fasting, it's one way to go. It's
Yeah, because
one way to get to God.
I think South America in some of the countries, I think they have some of the thing, but I know I want to say it's the Philippines. Everybody,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the Philippines where they actually have groups that they actually nail themselves to a cross.
Oh, I wasn't aware.
Yeah, that they're
Wow.
where they actually go through the crucifixion process and stuff like that. It's the same thing. And so yeah,
Yeah.
it's there. I mean, there's some people that they're all in.
Yeah. No, Charles rightly says the American Indian Sundance. That is also really about supplication and not just asking for your prayers to be answered, but giving of your blood and of your sweat and of your life to do it. I know people who have pierced and sundanced. And it's so there's an extra thing to it there. Yeah,
Yeah,
all kinds of things, multicultural. Why is it not showing that? There you go. These things are real long. I'm experimenting.
because it's like I said, like Opus Dei was founded in 1928.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. I think it's Escriva. The name's gonna be terrible with names.
Yeah, Jose Maria Escrive.
Yeah, he's one of the things like he really did was in his writings, he really talked about it was in that self-mortification. It's like you must kill yourselves for proselytism. So basically, it's not just about going out and just saying, "Hey, Joey, have you heard about Jesus? The things he can do for you." No, you actually have to suffer, to make, basically through your suffering. If I suffer, then Joey will see that this really truly is the way to salvation. And it's one of there's not everybody does. This is one of those, just kind of like anything. There's always the real kook in, pretty much in any group, whether, whatever church is, but this one is definitely, I think, have you ever listened to Jim Gaffigan, comedian?
Yeah.
He always jokes around that his wife is Shiite Catholic. These guys would be considered Shiite Catholics. It would be the way. I mean, these are
right
the fanatic side.
And it's weird. I'm in a weird place today. But I think that's all well and good. It's better than some bishop or cardinal sitting in absolute opulence and asking other people to suffer for God. I mean, at least they're walking the walk, but there's a line, and that's what it is. All of these things eventually, they cross the line. But Opus Dei was incredibly powerful in the United States. Robert Bork, who was a former U.S. Solicitor General, was involved. Rick Santorum, a fairly well-known senator in his time, spoke about Opus Dei's emphasis on integrating faith and work. There it is again. And on the spiritual side, there was a guy named Gurdjieff, and he had a whole system for integrating faith and work. Not a horrible thing, but then, Craig, there's work will set you free, right? Which is what it said over all the concentration camps. So it's just these fine lines. Who are some of the other people? Oh, John Poindexter, right? Poindexter was, I know I wrote this down here, Admiral John Poindexter, National Security Advisor to Ronald Reagan, and then worked for Bush worked for DARPA during the Bush era. His wife, Linda, was heavily involved with something called the Catholic Information Center, the CIC, in Washington, D.C., which is operated by Opus Dei. Now, you guys are going to see a connection in this sort of infiltration of the halls of power in Washington, D.C. by these religious organizations when we talk about the family in March, the other family, the U.S. family, who sponsor the National Prayer Breakfast. And Craig, that's the huge debate. It's going on now, the 10 Commandments in classrooms and prayer in schools. It's been going on for a long time. Is this a country founded on the Christian faith, separation of church and state, right, wrong, or indifferent on any of those opinions? This really commingles at the very highest levels of power.
Yeah, it does. It's one of those things. It's kind of like there's, it's like the separation of church and state. It's not in there. That's always been something to where it's always been good practice, because the policy has never been that the state shall never make an official religion. So at no point is the U.S. government ever to say, just kind of like how when we broke away from then England, this was the church. This is the one. That's the thing. It's that basically the state is never to determine, come out and say, okay, now everybody, Mormonism is now the official state of, religion of the land. Everybody must either convert to this, like, yeah, it's not supposed to do that, but it's also the same thing. It's like, you can't, I'm not a fan of forcing people to do, it's one of the, because being, really high libertarian,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it's one of those things. It's that you can't, it's like, just because you don't believe it doesn't mean suddenly, you have to force somebody else to, and that's the thing is I can't go with that. It's like, it just be, if anything, other religions, people would have a problem, and this one's the same thing. I can't get on board with the forcing of somebody to practice something that they don't want to. I mean, it's like, hey,
yeah, that's what it is. And King was making a comment that it used to be more prevalent in schools. I went to Catholic school, but when I went to public school, it was a big shot in the face. So it wasn't seamless at all. I mean, I was with the nuns and the pulling of the ear and the wrapping on the knuckles with the metal part of the wooden ruler. Louis Freeh, who is a former FBI director, also involved with them. Very, very interesting. Here's the big one, Craig, and this goes back to when we did Project Monarch. This is super dark, but this circles back to Antonin Scalia. Remember, I was living in North Carolina, so it was February of 2016. Anton Scalia found dead at Cibolo Creek Ranch in West Texas. The ranch was owned by Admiral John Poindexter, also involved with Opus Dei. Scalia had a pillow over his face. There was no autopsy. It was very, very weird. And then some odd things came out before it fell out of the news cycle, that the ranch was home to a chapter of a hunting club called the Order of St. Hubertus that goes like all the way back, I think, to the 13th, if not the 13th, to the 1600s. But when we did Project Monarch and we talked about politicians with an affinity for young people, you there, my friend? Oh, we lost Craig for a second. An affinity.
You fed the dog, right?
Craig, you're not muted. You're just off screen. There was no autopsy, and then there were some accusations that maybe a young boy who he had gone too far with, I'm trying to be delicate here, took a sharp edge and dragged it around the space between his shoulders and his head. I don't even know what the hell we can say anymore. I really don't.
I know. It's one of those things. We got to tiptoe around everything.
Yeah, but that was really interesting because both of them were involved with Opus Dei. They have secretive cult-like practices. They isolate their members from their families. This is something that is a pattern over and over. Obviously, it's the same thing of a young man in high school who is bullying his girlfriend and trying to control her, keep her away from her friends, try to monopolize her time, isolate her. So there's that psychological pattern there. And intense obedience to leadership, of course, is another theme. We talked about the physical mortification. We talked about the fact that, of course, they're opposed to any kind of freedom of gender expression, what a woman does with her body. They want to control that. I'm trying to be delicate here. And in order to maintain
hardliners. I mean,
and I guess this is to be expected, right? There's a spectrum of all things. That, again, to circle around, why is this an important sinister mystery? Because they really have such a strong presence in Washington, D.C. And that's something I think that we need to think about. You're really going to see it with the Family in America in a month or so, 5 weeks, when we cover that.
Well, and it's, like you said, it's one of those, the current leader of Opus Dei, he was appointed by the Pope. I mean, so this is directly tied to, the Vatican. I mean, so this isn't something that you're like, well, hey, we just let them kind of live. Like, no, they're heavily involved. So this is one of those, they're kind of like, it's the saying, having your cake and eating it too. It's like they can Pope Francis can be like, well, hey, I'm going to go this way. You know, we're really going to inclusive. We're going to bring all these people in. Meanwhile, you're fully endorsing the side that is hardline. That boom, no, I am not. You know, this is not this. You know,
Yeah.
these are the things, and that's so it's kind of a weird thing that you would in one side of your mouth, you know, you're talking about how you want this, while at the same time you're signing the checks and supporting the ones that are completely opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, look what the CIA does with front organizations. I mean,
Mhm.
we've talked about this to death, but it's super important and it's going to continue to be super important. Um, the Silval, Google and Amazon and Oracle and all of these companies were started with CIA seed money as a means to surveillance and big data. Uh, the last thing I want to say about Opus Dei is it's not just in the United States. They run schools and universities globally that promote their worldview. And in the 1980s, they misused funds to support right-wing political causes in Europe and Latin America. 1980s Latin America, that's the tail end of Operation Condor, which was one of our episodes. Infiltrating these governments. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but in 5 weeks or so, when we do Sinister Ministries 3, we're going to talk about the U.S. family. And it is just this on a different level, a bigger scale, and really a lot of scandal involved with that. That's all I have for Opus Dei, my friend.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just one of the, I mean, the biggest thing for them is like they fight back and they say, you know, we're not here, but just like anything, it's plausible deniability. You know, it comes
Yeah.
down to the same. So they're just like you said, you can tell people are being brainwashed, you know, and being forced into, you know, into compliance through this, you know, through pressures and stuff. But it's at the same time, you could say they're doing it on their own free will.
Right.
So we're not really a cult. We're not really, we're not being secretive. We're just saying we expect this adherence to the, you know, to this doctrine. Well, it's one of those, it's just like anything pressure. It's just like you said, the boyfriend and the girlfriend. It's like, is he keeping her, you know, is he keeping her locked up in the thing? No, but he's also saying, you know, if you go hang out with them, well, then I'm just going to, you know, so it forces her to, you know, it goes both ways. You can see some spouses where the wife is really controlling over the husband and the husband, you know, and you could see that way where they suddenly become distant from family, friends. And that's kind of what Opus Dei does to a lot of members. They basically steer them in a direction, but they can easily say, we didn't do it.
Yeah. And
They
and
chose.
what you're going to see is it's really hard to, like, Tanya and I've watched documentaries where people are clearly being harassed, horrible things are happening. There's this con artist documentary on Netflix where this guy held these women captive for like 2.5 years, had them lie to their families, extort money. It seems to be, for some reason, and you're going to see it with the family in Australia, the third part of the show. It's really hard to prove these things. It shouldn't be. You have testimony. Like, you can't believe the victims, but you can believe the perpetrators when they say, I didn't do it and it was all a misunderstanding. That's going to be Neil Gaiman's argument, right? It
Yep.
was all consensual. It was all consensual. It was all consensual. And we'll see how the court of public opinion goes on that. So Shincheonji, Church of Jesus, the Temple of the Tabernacle of the Testimony, the Temple of the Tabernacle of the Testimony. I like it.
Yeah, I know. It has a. I mean, it's just this is one. This falls into where it's like you've got the people that just you know, just on the surface, it's not, they're not using any like real crazy, you know, doctrine. But here you have somebody who he's hit on. So this is one of the first, you know, we had a couple, I think, from the last time too, where it's that arc where it's the Jesus arc, where they found like, I can hit on this thing where I am the reincarnation of Jesus. Well, how does this work? Because the one we're talking about at the end of the show, they both think the reincarnation of Jesus. So, you know, which one's the, you know, so this, yeah, and this guy, he starts this and he basically, you know, comes out, we'll hear the term while we're talking about this, but he's the promised pastor.
Yes. I just want to address this real quick before we go
Yeah.
on. I believe direct ties are only through research. So this is allegedly.
Yes.
But yes, I think some of the tactics are certainly being studied and applied by state sanctioned groups because they'll take it from wherever they can get it. So it was established in 1984 in South Korea by Lee Man-hee. As Craig said, the Promise Pastor, who also goes by the chairman, just like Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra. Very corporate for a religious organization, the chairman, to whom Jesus revealed the secrets of Revelation. So now we're getting into Revelation and biblical prophecy. So this is Heaven's Gate. This is the Millennialists. This is always kind of interesting. This particular tool. Their base is in Gwacheon, South Korea.
South Korea.
Goalie's
Yep.
probably going to yell at me for my pronunciation of that. Gwacheon, I think. Established branches, though, in Asia, Europe, and North America. These people like to go global.
Mhm.
These cults like to go global.
They got New Zealand. This is one of the things. If you apologize, I only have one screen tonight. I've reorganized the thing here, so I can't put the share. But yeah, if you go to, I'm not encouraging everybody to for this stuff, but you can go to their website, and their website's actually pretty well laid out. They've got in the way they do it is just it's. I mean, just they're heavily based off of the Book of Revelation.
Yeah,
the end times, and this is they really and I mean, it's one of those things. It's the easy way to do it because even when I was growing up in the church, that was always the one because that's the book that had the action. That's the book that had all the cool stuff. So, while everybody is sitting here talking about the boring stuff, you're just like, so you flip to the back and you start reading about angels coming down with trumpets and the pale death. Like yes, this was the exciting part. And
the seals, the plagues. I left the Catholic Church my freshman year of college, which I think a lot of kids do, right? You're broadening your thought, you're trying new things. But I did spend that summer turning some of Revelation into a poem, an epic poem. So I spent that entire summer like in the woods with a Bible that my college roommate's mom gave me. I was spending the summer with them, and it's fascinating. It's also could be as simple as John of Patmos, who was exiled, was a revolutionary, and basically talking about Roman dominion, but talking in code. Right, so the 7 horns can be the 7 hills of Rome. So really, it's no kind of revelation at all. It was a coded description of something that was happening immediately now, but it really is, and you called it revelation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It bugs me when people call it revelations. It's
it's revelation. Yep.
Yeah. So the big
I might have said revelations, but we'll just play it off that you didn't.
Establishment of God's kingdom on earth, right? Very in line again with Revelation through the chairman, through the Promise Pastor, accused of being a cult by religious groups and some experts, allegations of deceptive recruitment practices, infiltrating other churches or student groups, trying to get the young, of course. That's everybody from David Koresh to, you want to raise the kids up in the, and extremist groups, same thing. They raise the kids up in it. But we all try to raise our kids in our worldview to a lesser.
Oh, yeah. This man loved to talk, too, because it's like, how hard it was to find that image below me where he didn't have a microphone?
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot to say. I mean, he's
all
the Promise Pastor.
Yeah, all pictures, like him. He's got a microphone, or he's like Louis Farrakhan. He's up on a podium doing these big things. I think this is, I could be wrong, but I think this is also the church that does the big mass weddings too.
That I missed.
No. I'm mistaking that with the other one. I think that's the Moonies.
Oh yeah, that could be. So let's get into Revelation. Why the heck not? The whole linchpin of their whole deal is something called the 144,000 who will reign with Christ. And of course, this is a recruitment tactic come be with us, as the Who's Tommy says, be among comfortable people and be one of the 144,000. This is central to their theology. It's in Revelation chapter 7, verses 4 through 8, and in Revelation chapter 14, verses 1 through 5. 7, 4 through 8 says 144,000 are sealed from the tribes of Israel, symbolizing those chosen by God for a special purpose. And they're the ones who are going to put forth God's perfect ultimate plan. So this is important work. It's good work if you can get it. Revelation 14, 1 through 5 says that the 144K stand with the Lamb or Christ on Mount Zion. It's a good view. His name and his Father's name are written upon their foreheads. They are pure, faithful, redeemed, and act as the first fruits. So they're the front line. And they seal members with the truth of God's word so that they may become part of this 144,000. When the new heaven and the new earth, heaven on earth, all of that kind of thing, the new Jerusalem and all, they will guide the rest of humanity who will also be saved. But they're lesser than Craig, which is interesting. It's that hierarchy thing, even in the second coming of Christ. All men are created equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, there's also a theme too. It's like a lot of these ones, part of their story is always something that can not be verified in any way.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it's like the North Korean dictators, where they always have this outlandish thing. There's no way to prove or disprove this thing because it's just, I mean, when he was started out his life, as a poor, I love it. Even on their website, they talk about it, that he was born from the lineage of Korean kings, but yet he was a poor, impoverished person in the countryside. So I don't know how you can be, in the lineage of a monarchy but yet you're still a pauper. So he goes through this, that he spent all this time, just poor, penniless. And then that's when he received the open word, which is the open scroll from Revelation. And so that's when he was imparted with this thing, because and at this point, he claims to have experienced all of the book of Revelation.
Which is quite an experience, like you and I talked about.
Yeah.
Quite
so
cinematic.
Then now
nobody's tackled it.
Yeah. So now that's what makes him the messenger, because now he's experienced all, and it's like, we can all say, but at the same time, can we prove it? No. But it's also, you can't ask him to prove it, because it's like, you can read it verbatim, or you can memorize the book of Revelation.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like Moroni, Joseph Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me these gold plates, but I misplaced them.
But this is what they say,
Yeah.
And people are like, well, it could be from the word of God. I'm like, I always do. I think I did the last show too. It's like when I said with the experiencer, I go, Stephen King could be the greatest experiencer of all time if you just believe what somebody says. Sure. So this is the same thing. Some of these cult leaders and these leaders in these groups, they could have that ability to just be a fantastic imaginative storyteller that can just come up with these things. You can't. I mean, how are you going to just prove that I'm the messenger of God? He's talking all this stuff, and you're like, oh, that's true. And then you just go off in this elaboration. That's why God has impressed upon me that we must build this and this and this, so that way we can hearken in the new tabernacle. And you get people like, wow, all right, let's do it. Because people have this innate thing. They have to have, something to look to, and it doesn't matter what, there's a lot of people, they have to have something to feel that they belong. That's why some of these people, because they always ask, we've said this on several shows, how do people do this? It's because there's this innate thing in society. You want to be included in stuff. And so a lot of these people, they're just, especially if you're more of the follower and not the leader, it is real easy to jump on board with this thing, because I let this person do all the thinking for me, and I can just be free and happy.
Which is absolutely right. I have a couple thoughts on that. When you look at Nexium, or when we get to the family in Australia, there's a professional class that got involved with these people. business leaders and doctors and psychiatrists. And there was the one where he dated the guy who also said he was Jesus. It was one of the ones we did in the past, where he had the nurse who was like his right hand person. It was one of the ones we.
The Rajneeshis?
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah,
the Bhagwan, the guy from India.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, it could have been. They all kind of run together now after so many episodes. But so here's the problem with the 144,000. I'll go back to that last thought. What about the fate of those outside the church who failed to meet the qualifications? Shincheonji Church has hundreds of thousands of members. So how the hell do you decide? Who the hell decides? Just like, again, the Nexium dude, not only did he have these women carving stuff in their thighs, like celebrities and business professionals and all these people, but there was a hierarchy, and there was only so much room in that slave hierarchy where you got to be in charge of other slaves. And of course, he was in charge of everyone. So that becomes highly problematic. Who are the 144,000 when you have 500 or 600,000 members, right?
Yeah, because according to, I think the last thing, I'm just looked at double check, the last thing that they're bringing up, the Health Ministry of South Korea estimates that it could be as high as 317,000.
Yeah, and only 144,000 are going to be part of those chosen. So you're working hard. You're giving your money. You're working really, really hard. You're showing up for the meetings. You're scrubbing the floors extra well. And of course, that comes with reports of psychological financial exploitation. And the last thing I want to say about these cats, he also withholds his membership lists, which I guess is a no-no. So he's had legal action against them for that. Last thing I want to say about them is they were responsible for a big old outbreak of a certain COVID 19 in early 2020. Because
they refused to stop, congregating, and and unfortunately that Asia was ground zero for it. So that one, you're definitely you're gonna see it spread there first. But yeah, this one's just right up there with, it's just you've just got dense population area. You've got all these people that want. You get a lot of people that just want to have something to belong to. They just want to have, to the escape from society type thing. And a lot of these guys, they know just how to capitalize on it.
Yeah. It's a hyper intelligence with sociopathic tendencies, a literal messiah complex, right? Some of them profess to be, or truly do believe that they're a deity, something like that. And I guess, Craig, what they do is they go this far and people go for it. They go this far, people go for it. On that second or third stage of going further, they start to draw people in. People start to get invest. They leave their families. They leave their businesses. They give the guy all their money, in for a penny, in for a pound. Then they can go further and further, employ the brainwashing. And you are absolutely right that the family should be last, because this is where.
Yeah, because I mean, we're basically we're into with the family. We're I think if there wasn't something here, we definitely could have seen, this would have been the Australian version of Jim Jones, it really could have gotten to this point to where it was just that, that fervent. So take it away, sir. This is going to be all right. Okay. Everybody brace for this one. All right.
Yeah, so we'll ease in. We'll dip our toes in the water of Anne Hamilton Byrne. She has a background in, spirituality and certain spiritual practices, and she begins to draw people in with those kinds of things in the early 1960s. Nobody knows for sure when it started, but they know by 1963 or 64, she starts to profess that she's not an instrument of Jesus's word, but she is in fact the reincarnated Jesus Christ. She starts to distort principles of New Age spirituality. And New Age spirituality really gets a bad rap. crystals and woo woo and all of that kind of stuff. There are a lot of really vulnerable people who gravitate towards those things. So it's an easy target. There's a certain amount of people who do that. She also incorporated elements of psychotherapy. So when you're starting to play mind games and mix that with spirituality, that whole guru thing gets nasty in a hurry. She
Yeah,
also,
the name was weird too.
the family?
Yeah, it's also known as the Great White Brotherhood.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, there was the other one. It was like, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm looking here. I wrote it as the Santini Keaton, I think is that Park Association. I think is how you say it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
this is that new age group, and they said, but I never really thought that one of them was, that they went by was the Great White Brotherhood.
Yeah, which, the White Brotherhood is a very mystical thing. There's a whole she
Mhm.
pulled from lots and lots of. There was something that I really dug on, and I called on Tanya's expertise, and we'll get to it in just a little bit. She targeted the elite circles the way the family did in the United States. Went to Melbourne's elite and drew on wealthy professionals, doctors, lawyers. She hit them with a mix of Hinduism, Christianity, New Age philosophy. I mean, she was really mixing up the batter. Now, Craig, my organization, my multimedia company publishing a lot of the work that I do is under New Mystics. Not to be confused with the mega Christian group with the dronotrons and all. I was first. But the idea of pulling from all different spiritual and religious systems, looking for the overlaps, kind of doing what Joseph Campbell did. So again, there's degrees and there's intentions. What I found, Craig, was she had something called the Great Plan. She was preparing what she called a superior race for the end times. So again, Heaven's Gate, the millennialists, Om Shrinko, I think, in Japan, that let the sarin gas out in the subway.
Yep.
I think they were a millennialist group. So this idea of the end times, the times are ticking, and if you want to be on the right team, if you want your soul to be saved, and hey, look, a lot of priests, a lot of ministers, they preach about that too. Save your soul, be ready for when Jesus comes, all that kinds of thing. Mind control and isolation, strict lifestyle rules, vegetarianism, daily spiritual rituals. Now, there's nothing wrong with vegetarianism. There's nothing wrong with daily spiritual rituals. So I dug deeper. Like, what exactly are these spiritual rituals? This is adults and children. Meditate for long periods. Where lots of people go to ashrams, lots of people go to retreats. They meditate hours and hours a day. But here's the catch. Here's where it starts to get warped. Focusing on worshiping Anne Hamilton Byrne as the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. That's problematic. Mantras and affirmations, nothing wrong with those. I use them all the time. But promoting obedience and detachment from the outside world, also nefarious. Fasting at times enforced as a form of purification. So she's pulling all of these other things.
Oh yeah, no, it was you could definitely tell it was just one of those. I would for her it seemed more like the person that's more schizophrenic, and that the more like in mentally, like it was just somebody that it wasn't a con. It was like I think she actually Anne believed, to a point, that this was true, because she was pulling some stuff out. I mean, there's just stuff where, I mean, we've all seen it. Some people have Facebook posts where it's just like, word diarrhea. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes, and it's like covering all different things that are around here. And you're like, okay, it's kind of unhinged, but at the same time, that they actually believe it. And that's I'm just, I didn't find anything, but I'm surprised there wasn't a manifesto with her.
It seemed like all roads led to her, right?
Yeah.
You're meditating and you're thinking about her. You're fasting and you're thinking about her. You're doing mantras and affirmations that are all about her. So there is a megalomania there. So let me ask you this, Craig, just, to always be tying this larger subject together that you and I are both fascinated by. Do Do you think that Koresh, the head of Heaven's Gate, Jim Jones, you think all these people believed that they were telling the truth about who they were? Whoever founded Shincheonji?
Um, I there's a few. I would, if I had to just on the spot, I would say David Koresh was probably the mentally, were the mentally unstable to where he was starting to believe his own BS.
Yeah.
Like he said, he was starting to do this.
So
Some
it
of
was
these
a
ones
con that he actually
that
became
he
like his
really,
own
really
follower?
started. Yeah. I'm going to do this one just for the same thing, like when we do Scientology here, later on.
Yeah.
The Shincheonji, allegedly, in my personal opinion, I think he's full of it. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. And this is something that he's just found. He's found his way, and that's what I'm going to do. It's in my personal opinion, but it's the same way with a couple of TV evangelists here in the U.S.
Yeah.
They 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 found the way to riches and fortune and fame, and it's through, it's by waving a book and coming up with stuff, because you can just tell. It's like there's the, they don't seem crazy. They just seem like, they're, because like Jones, he was the same way. I don't think he was crazy. I think he just knew how to do the con, and he was just, it just kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it was just one of those, there's only really, at that point, there's only one way out. And that's kind of what happened.
Suddenly they're in Ghana and they're in a walled thing, and the senator is coming, and
there's really only one way. Yeah, one way out at that point, and that's usually where it ends up. Some kind of violence, like the crew. They go to wars. Kind of like David Koresh. I think it just started getting more and more ramped up. But I want to. Anne, I think was she was off the rocker. David Koresh was one of those. I mean, there's a couple. Heaven's Gate, same way. I think he was out
cuckoo.
there.
I think he was the guy with the nurse, because I think he met her when he was in a hospital, because remember, he had a certain proclivity that he couldn't deal with, and that's where he met the nurse.
Just one where, closet, and stuff like that. Because that's the one with the matching shoes and everything that
say no more, nudge nudge, wink wink. Yep. So Anne, like so many of these others, you have to isolate. You have to isolate in order to mold and shape. So they have a secret operations center at Lake Eildon in Victoria, Australia, at a property called Kai Lama. And I was like, okay, so Kai, Cobra Kai, Kubla Kai, Kai has, in every language just about, Kai has a meaning. And Lama is a priest, but really what I found was nobody can agree on what it meant. So I think, Craig, like you were saying, she used all these terms and pulled all these things, and it just sounds spiritual and cool. Come to Kai Lama. Oh, okay, Kai Lama. So Kai Lama.
Yeah, because I think it's one of those things, because a lot of those people, like we were just talking about, if I wanted to start, my joke I have, I think, is starting beardoism, type thing. I mean, if I really wanted to make this a religion, I mean, it wouldn't be hard. I would find people that would follow it, because I could come up with these things. I could pull some mantra from Buddhism. I could, take these things, these different things. I could craft this thing. And if I sat down and I actually created this thing, I could get people that would honestly, I guarantee by the year's end, I could probably have 10 or more followers. And not just people that it's a joke, like actual followers, where it's like practitioners of beardoism. Because if you take the time, like I said, if you take somebody like yourself that has the ability to creatively write, to do these things, how hard is it to come up with, a doctrine, that would sound believable, especially when you're taking these long-standing ancient traditions. It would seem like it was truly that thing.
Yeah. So let me just tell you something real quick. I encourage everyone. Tanya very much practices what she preaches. She is a spiritual healer, wellness professional for many, many decades, very talented. The distinguishment between a true guru and some of these people who put themselves up. But Craig, quick story about Fidel Castro. So after the revolution, when he came to New York, they were all kinds of superstars. They all had these big beards because they had been in the jungle for years and hadn't shaved, and they called them barbudos, the bearded ones. And it was kind of like, sort of a religion. And all the elite of New York had them to parties. They were in their fatigues. People were buying berets and fake beards for their kids. Like they were selling by the tens of thousands in New York. So by the time Kennedy and Nixon and everybody did a hatchet job on them, they started calling them the Beardos, El Beardos. But true story, the CIA was developing a powder. They were like, Fidel Castro is the man in Cuba because he has a beard. So they were developing a powder that they could either put on his shoes or put in his food that would make his beard fall out. And the CIA was convinced if he lost his beard, he'd lose his mojo. So you're like, on to that's
the Cuban
crazy.
version of Samson. If he loses the beard, he loses his strength.
True story, man. I mean, they tried to kill this guy and weaken this guy in all kinds of ways. It was totally, totally nuts. So while they're isolated at Kailam, no access to TV, newspapers, no outside education, it's all very typical, very psychological. We all know this kind of stuff. But she's passing out through her doctors and psychiatrists who are part of the group. And this is really deeply unsettling to me. LSD, hallucinogens, again, like the CIA. Right, Frank, what's his name? Getting dosed by Sidney Gottlieb, who was running the program to get Castro's beard to fall out. Under the guise of enlightenment, this is used to break down the will, enforce obedience and submission. Craig, this sounds like psychic driving. Sounds like Montauk. Sounds like using Edgewood Arsenal, MK Ultra. It's like, so when Charles was asking, do some of these tactics get put in? I'm sure religion, I would think if the CIA has a subject that they want to experiment on, and this person is a person of deep religious faith, they're going to use that. They're going to use it. They're going to weaponize it because that's what they do. You were forced to listen repeatedly to tapes of her lectures. So that's the same kind of thing with Shinji-onji, right?
Mm-hmm. Same
thing. Listen to their voice. Listen to their message. Okay, folks. Sinister ministries. Sinister. She adopted, quote unquote, for our radio folks who listen to this 3 weeks from now on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. on her radio. See how I worked that in there?
Yes.
She adopted, air quotes, 28 children, many illegally taken, kidnapped, or falsified through forged birth certificates facilitated by the doctors who were part of the program. This use of LSD and hallucinogens, folks, extended to the children. Administered by the doctors and psychiatrists in the cult. All the children were dressed identically. All their hair was dyed blonde and cut in the same way. So they looked like basically they were all from the same family tree, and they were subjected to harsh discipline and beatings. And Craig, we've seen this in other cults, the deep abuse of children.
And I just put in the chat for everybody the list of some of the doses of psychiatric drugs that she would give these kids, and one of them, like I think it's flufenazine. I think it's terrible, these things. But one of the side effects of going off this drug is it's called tardive dyskinesia. And this is when involuntary movements and stuff. So this is one of those things to where you can actually make it, because some of the symptoms are grimacing, blinking, lip smacking, chewing motions, puffing out cheeks, just doing all this uncontrolled. So if you're really trying to convince people like somebody has problems or something, you can give them these things and then take them off of them, and then they're going to start showing these signs. And so if anybody wants to do, you can search up each one of these and look at what the side effects are of these things. And you can see this lady was giving these kids this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is basically, I can't remember. It happened here in the US where that mom was intentionally making her daughter sick. So that way.
Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah. And it's basically, it's that same, this is basically that type of activity, but potentially to at least like 28 different kids. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you're drugging these kids up.
Yeah. So when you, and I'm extrapolating here, so I can't even say allegedly. I'm just wondering aloud. Let's say I'm wondering aloud here, postulating if you took those kids off that, they could look like they were speaking in tongues. They were possessed. They
Mhm.
needed her to heal them. Now, there's no record of any of this.
Oh no,
I'm just postulating here, folks.
well, and it could be, and if you think about that, what a greater way to show that you are truly the reincarnation of the Messiah. If I'm over here doing something like this, and all of a sudden you administer them, and I'm like, oh, and you're like, see, I healed him. He is healed, and then boom, everybody's like, oh my God, they're clapping, everybody's, and yeah, you could definitely orchestrate, your own miracles with this type of stuff. And as I said, it's pretty, but it's one of the.
Yeah, and because what we know for sure is you don't give LSD and hallucinogens to anybody, but especially not children, unless there's an ulterior motive. So again, to break down the will, enforce obedience, submission. Did she then go appear to them and try to convince them that she was Jesus while they were in this state? I would guess that a lot of this was going on. I wish there was a happy ending here, but there isn't. So in the late 1980s, former members start to report abuse and illegalities. This is already going on for 20 years now. 25 years if this is the late 1980s. So this is already concerning. That some of these children have grown up in this. So Victoria police start a whole sting operation, Operation Farce, to investigate. So not sting, but a special task force called Operation Farce to find out what the hell is going on. So then in 1987, a teenager escapes from Kai Lama and reveals the physical and psychological abuse. So now we have witnesses, which is what had happened with Jim Jones, which is why he had to flee and go to Ghana. People get out and they talk. We've seen this over and over. Nexium, I believe, was some escaped people who blew the whistle. So August 14th of 1987, the police raid Kai Lama. They rescue 6 children. They recover forged birth certificates, but they leave them be. This isn't a Waco. This isn't any kind of standoff kind of thing. They leave. So now Hamilton Byrne is tipped off. So her and her husband flee to the UK. Then they flee to the US. Meanwhile, they're still getting donations from their faithful. So they're living in high friggin' style. Finally, in 1993, 6 years after the allegations, she's arrested in the Catskills in New York through FBI cooperation with the Victoria police. She is tried only on the single charge of forging birth certificates. Stunning. To which she pleads guilty. She pays a $5,000 Australian dollar fine, which isn't that far off, Craig, from American money. It's a pittance.
Yeah, because he was charged with
done to these children.
The conspiracies to defraud and commit perjury, over these adoption scams and stuff that she was, and then that's where all those charges were dropped. I'm not sure why, they're dropped. And then, like I said, so she pleads guilty to pretty much something that doesn't really have any teeth, and they pay a small fine.
Yeah, $5,000, and she lives to be 98 years old.
Yep. Yeah, she died in 2019, and the adopted daughter that escaped, who her name, she went by, changed her name to Sarah Moore, but she was Sarah Hamilton. I think it's Bernie, Fire. I'm not sure how you say the last name.
Oh, it's just Byrne.
Yeah. So she escaped. She actually does kind of a little bit of a tell-all. So you can look her up, Sarah Moore, and she has a nice little tell-all about it, of the stuff that what they went through. But yeah, she ended up dying of heart failure at age of 46 in 2016. So Anne ends up outliving her by 3 years.
Yeah. And that heart failure could have been attributed to all the drugs and the fasting and the other deprivations. It's just when you have that much testimony to choose to only go on a forgery charge that only comes with a fine, that's sad. That's sad, sad business. So
Well,
That's
it makes you just wonder. It's like, is it because of possible connections, people that it always boils down to the stuff like the Epstein list. We're not getting in this information because of the people that are involved. So it makes you wonder because of the connections, like you said, to government officials. Well, I don't want this coming out that, we have ties to this person, so let's just make it go away. Because
right.
how do you administer all these psychedelics and these psychiatric drugs to these kids like this thing, and nothing comes of that?
Right, because I didn't find anything about any doctors being disbarred or psychiatrists
No,
losing their license, not doctors being disbarred, losing their
but
their
they're practicing.
but there
Well,
were
it's like,
lawyers.
I mean, there's some lawyers those are the ones that should have been disbarred. It's just
Yeah.
the solicitor. I'm trying to remember that guy's name. I'll see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, he had this.
Yeah, so
There's
you get powerful people involved. That was
yeah,
Jim Jones in San Francisco. He had the entire city fooled.
yeah.
He had civic organizations and politicians who were on his side.
Yeah. He was the group solicitor, Peter Kibbe. He was the one. He had admitted that the group had engaged in adoption scams, including forgery. So it's like, these type of things. It's like, why wasn't this a bigger thing? I mean, because we're talking, they came into a lot of money.
Yeah.
Too. So it's, I don't know. I think it's probably, like I said, a lot of that stuff like the Epstein, where there's just a lot of people that they had to bury it so that way they didn't get exposed.
Yeah, they knew it was going to go away. They had to make it go away. So that's that. Craig, I'd like to I'd like to take just a little bit of time to just talk about a few items in the news if we can.
Yes, do it.
So I want to update the audience on apparently the mayor of Mine Hill, New Jersey was correct, and the drones, many of these drones had FAA authorization for their flyover. So I think this really makes a case that this is probably an audition by drone companies trotting out and testing the capabilities of their latest technology.
And one of the things too, it's like because we talked a little bit about this, that makes me wonder, why the secrecy?
Well, that's what Trump is asking about the Biden administration.
Yeah, because I'm just
say
if this just came out, it's like these had FAA approval. Why did the Biden administration we don't know, we got to get into this? It's like, did nobody pick up a phone?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like that would have been something, why turn this into a panic situation when it's simply like, oh yeah, no, I mean, because just like you said, this could have simply been, we're testing out, new tech, we're testing out these things, we're doing these things. But no, they let it go to where the people in New Jersey are just freaking out that they've got all these unidentified drones going over. I mean, look at all the stories that came out of it. They're alien orbs, they're, Iranian drone ships that are all this stuff that's putting people in panic when you can simply just say, oh no, this is Bob's drone company that came out and they're showing us how this could easily move more product for Amazon.
Yeah, field conditions or military applications, right?
Mm-hmm.
I talked about Palmer Lucky's sister's married to Matt Getz's brother, so that gets you access. He's got a big old drone company.
Why risk having a truck move the material from this point to this point when we can lift it and bring it over and drop it? Yeah. So that's all you had to do.
Some of the radio frequency things, the radar jamming, testing that in real time under new conditions, because so much is coming out now, right? Tanya and I were watching these astrology guys that we really like, and they recalled that you had the tech oligarchs lined up in front of the cabinet at the inauguration. Front row was the tech oligarchs: Google, Amazon, Facebook, Musk, so on and so forth. Then behind them are the prospective cabinet members. So it's very like, here's who's in charge. Here's the corporate oligarchy. He's the Silval guys. I don't want to take the orb thing, Craig, completely off the table, because I reported last week on these guys who were tracking these things who seem very credible.
I was just using it where it's like
new technology. Yeah,
everything got lumped together, and it's just like you had people going into a panic. They're seeing this, they're seeing ones the size of a bus, and it's all you had to do is just say no. Majority of these, it's like some, we're not sure what they are, but most of them, this is what, that's all you have to do. And it's just, I don't know.
I'm with Alien Girl, and I always go. I'll call it the X-Files effect, but it seems to be more than one thing. But the bulk of it, but yet Craig, they played along to the point of making 21 different zones around Christmas time in New Jersey, no fly zones.
Yeah.
So they really played a lot of theater with this whole thing. Trump canceled his trip to Bedminster for Christmas. Like, did the blue team or the comic, did they get a big chuckle out of having him be so spooked and concerned that he canceled his trip? Was a little on Trump?
Could have been. I mean, it's because I would say, I mean, it would be another. It's one of those things that, just like how government always does it. It's just the statement they deny, then they come out with a statement, and then nobody really believes the statement. Just like it's like, I mean, come on. I mean, do you really think we're going to go through all this? You're going to threaten people's lives, then you're going to hold up a couple pieces of wood and some Mylar film and tell us like, oh yeah, this is what it was. No, come on. You don't threaten people's livelihood over, balloon material.
Yeah.
You don't threaten people over, FAA authorized flights.
Yeah. No, very weird. And they're still kind of happening, and people are seeing interesting things. They're saying they're having more specialists and analysts coming out now and going, oh no, these things that look like orbs, they're really just airplanes, and it's reflected light, and it's digitalization artifacts from cell phones and all that kind of stuff. I can't make up my mind about the fog. I just don't know.
I'm right there with you. There's not enough information. There's just, because it could just as easily be truly atmospheric conditions that just, hit perfect storm, as it could be something that was a test to see if this product worked. I mean, there's not enough for me to jump on.
Right.
I'm right there with you. I don't know.
Remember a couple years ago, the magnetized stuff was supposedly landing on people's cars, and they could, I did the experiments and got nothing.
Yeah, you get some of, because you'll get some of the people that'll claim it's like, it's flammable, this stuff's it's just, you go out there and it's like, no, the water's not flammable, it's just,
But I am watching it. I am keeping an eye on it, because if there's enough there for Sinister Mysteries, please trust us. We'll tackle it. But right now it's very diffuse, and so let me see. I think there were two other things. Oh, I just want to tease this real quick. You all know about the Chinese surprised everybody with DeepSeek after the announcement of Project Stargate. So we have an AI Cold War. A very, very serious AI Cold War. Craig and I are going to do an episode on that. We're going to talk about Stargate and about DeepSeek, which is actually owned by the Chinese government. And that is February 20th. So definitely tune in for that. I want to offer my condolences first and foremost to the people who lost their lives on the Black Hawk helicopter and in that passenger plane. There were members of the U.S. figure skating team. Doesn't matter. Human life is a human life, but that is part of the news cycle. Craig, what's really odd, two things, and I found this out. It landed like 3 minutes in the Washington Post before we went live. 24 hours before that happened, another plane had to wave off its landing and circle around because it encountered a helicopter in its flight path. Same airport, 24 hours earlier. This is being reported by the Washington Post. So I don't think it's garbage. But also yesterday, too, I don't know if people saw this. Not only do we have this Black Hawk helicopter training tragedy, but we lost another F-35. This one went into the ground, the pilot ejected, but in Alaska near a base. These are what, $100 million airplanes, F-35?
Oh, at least they're probably closer to $1 billion.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And every time I wanted to come out of my mouth like I balk. We lost the one in South Carolina, I think a year and a half ago. That's a really expensive machinery to be darting into the ground domestically. So
I was way off. Apparently, the average cost of these, you're real close. It's right around 100 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
That's a lot. That's a lot of money to dart into the ground. What's going on with these things? And they have the F-35s, if I remember correctly from the Dayton Air Show, when I saw them, and they're wicked impressive what they can do. Like, dude, like I call those fuck around and find out
Yeah.
airplanes. It's amazing what they can do. But they are partially AI.
It's funny you said that, because especially since the one is a F-35A, so it's an FA.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. It's like,
Absolutely. I mean, I am astonished by what these things could do, folks. If you haven't seen them in person, they are amazing. We had a bunch of flyovers of we have a fighter group that's not too far from here, and of course, I'm within like 3 hours of Dayton
Wright-Patterson.
and Wright-Patterson. So sometimes these babies
Mhm.
fly over, dude. My adrenaline kicks. Like I drop whatever I'm doing, and I could be highly concentrated by this computer. I drop everything and go out on the front porch and watch these babies go
Oh yeah,
by.
watch them go flying
It's
past.
cool
Oh yeah.
stuff. So speaking of DeepSeek and February 20th, you have a really big announcement that you teased last week. I mean, it's our
Yes.
announcement, but it's your announcement. So hit them, and then we'll exit out of this
Yes.
bad boy.
So everybody's been teasing it. So what it is after my little hiatus, I'm kind of getting back on the weekly thing, and Joey said yes. And so yeah, so I'm going to be on the show. I'm going to be on the show for a permanent basis now. And so
Yeah.
it's going to be, he's got a couple of shows that he had booked that he's going to be doing individually, but it's going to be every Thursday. It's going to be us, and not every show is going to be a Sinister Mystery. It's going to be, we'll have some regular shows, but then we'll also, especially if it's so, kind of opens it up where we can talk about pretty much a lot of topics, and we don't have to keep it just strictly to mysteries.
Exactly right. So that's Into the Outer Realms, where we're going to do, for instance, we were going to do a Sinister Mystery of Fate versus Free Will. It really belongs under the Into the Outer Realms. It's more of a spiritual kind of metaphysical sort of topic. So we're going to do that. There are lots, just the way it falls right now, there are lots of Sinister Mysteries that are coming up. So
Yep.
so we're not going to alternate. We're not going to do anything so symmetrical. Those of you who know me well might be surprised, but we are going to let the subject matter govern the brand. And it's we're here together, and that's great.
Yeah, so just the same thing, just like the puppet says, if you guys got any mysteries in mind, put it, send us a comment, do the stuff, and we'll pay attention, we'll look at it, because there's gonna be stuff that we haven't even heard about.
Yeah, exactly. And what else did I want to say? Same thing for larger spiritual or paranormal disclosure. Anything as disclosure comes, that'll be under the Into the Outer Realms brand, because that's where we've been doing it. So, Craig, with that, we're going to say goodnight.
It was awesome.
You all.
Nice.
And here comes our little puppet friend to take you home.
Good night.
Do you have a sinister mystery in mind? Let us know by sending us a DM or comment in the chat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Till next time, stay mysterious.